You're listening to the Plane Talking UK podcast, the UK-based podcast written by a passenger for anyone. And here are your hosts, Carlos Stebbings, Matt Smith and Neville Bounds.
Well, hello and welcome to episode number 218 of the Plane Talking UK podcast. I'm Carl Stebbings, and joining me on this Saturday night, just for a change, it's Matt Smith.
It's a sunny Saturday evening, everyone.
It's lovely here. Honestly, if any of you guys could be here at the barn with us, it is so nice outside there. I've said this before, I'll say it again. Matt has the best place to work in the UK. With the view that's behind me here, the river is so nice, honestly.
Absolutely. One day we'll do an alfresco version
of the show.
Yeah, of the show. We'll do an outside, and maybe Nev can come over and we'll go to Chan's beforehand. And, you know, we'll do a bit of a thing. But
so we are going to welcome, as always, onto the show our other awesome co-host of the show, Sir Neville Bounds. How are you?
Yes, hello everyone. Very well, thank you very much indeed. And it's been a great week. Very busy again, and outside gardening today. Been a nice day actually, but a bit thundery now. So we shall see what happens tonight. I think it might be a bit thunderstorm and rainy.
We still have glorious sunshine here in Bungay at the moment. It is absolutely. In fact, actually,
have we not got a really, really long USB cable, Matt, that we could sort of run a camera out to the...
Unfortunately, for successful USB communication, the limit is about 3 meters.
Yeah, it's a bit further than 3 meters.
So it's a bit further. So no is the short answer to that question.
Well.
But
take my word for it, people.
Yes, actually, Nev, we were having a chat just before we started, weren't we? Because there is this slightly unnerving thing, and I'm very concerned here because it does look like when Nev goes to Las Vegas very shortly that he will actually be flying cattle class, and I'm very worried, Nev. Oof. I'm not going to lie. I am very worried about you.
Well, I've checked with my insurance policy, and it is okay just for me to do that. I'd be quite interested in doing a Nev's passenger experience about that. But of course, I couldn't really interview myself, so I'm looking for perhaps one of our listeners to do that. So when I come back... depending how I get on.
Yes.
Let's try that out. And so if anybody's got any suggestions.
Yeah, see how upset he is. But absolutely. So it's... so it is a little bit of housekeeping. It is now 2 minutes past 7 o'clock in the evening. It is Saturday the 26th of May 2018.
So coming up in the show later on, we've obviously got some news to catch up with at the beginning of the show. We've also got a awesome segment from Nev's, the Nev Passenger Experience, coming up later. And we also have the second instalment from Pilot Pip, his PPE segment. Which is coming up as well later on. We've got a little bit of military news, and just to give you all the heads up, we may well have a couple of guests joining us at some point during this show. Not 100% sure yet because they're in kind of varying different places around the world, but hopefully we might have Stuart on the show, who you may remember, Stuart O'Neill, who's a pilot for a regional-based airline here in the UK. And we may have Brian Coleman joining us as well later on. But it's... Yeah.
My advice maybe, Carlos, would have been maybe not to mention anything at all, and then we'll see. But
this is the beauty of a live show.
Well, that's true, isn't it? Absolutely. It could be everyone or nothing. We might lose Nev before the end of the show. Who knows? Anything's possible.
That's okay. Sue will take over.
Right. Okay. Yes.
Or the cat.
Okay.
So anyway, Nev, you've had a busy kind of gardening type day today with this glorious weather we're having here in the UK.
Yeah, it's great, wasn't it? And so I've spent a little bit of today just getting all my gear ready for tomorrow.
What's happening tomorrow, Nev?
We are off to Bruntingthorpe Airfield in the morning, and we're going to see Neil Landwarn up there, and we're going to be doing some interviews and that sort of stuff. So we're going to shoot some video, do some audio interviews as well. So really looking forward to that. Weather is going to be a bit dodgy at times, but I think we might be okay for the most part. So I'm really looking forward to tomorrow. Actually, should be good.
It's going to be good, isn't it? Yeah.
What are you doing tomorrow, Matt? Why are you not joining me?
Right, yeah. So I'm doing an airport run tomorrow. I've got to go to Stansted to pick up my friends Lisa and Lee, who you have met if you've watched the show before. They've been in the studio a couple of times. They're coming back from Lanzarote. They've been there for 2 weeks. And
oh, blimey.
Yeah, really?
Awesome place for plane spotting.
Yes. Yes, he has promised me some video, so I'm hoping that there might be some...
I spent many an hour standing, because you can stand underneath the flight path of the aircraft coming into land at Lazarote.
That doesn't sound overly safe, I've got to be honest.
Oh, it's awesome, honestly. For any plane spotters out there, Lanzarote as a destination has it's like near enough complete all-round access to viewing the aircraft taking off, taxiing and stuff coming in, and you can stand underneath them as they fly over your head low, which is really
I must say, actually, while we're talking about that, the one place I'm desperate to maybe go and do a bit of plane spotting, actually, I think was where Nev went, because you went at Schiphol. You were saying the viewing gallery there when you went over and had a little meet up with some of our listeners. It was absolutely, it was an amazing place, if you like, to watch the world go by.
Yeah, and because it's up so high as well, you get a fantastic view right over the apron, and lots of photographers there, and they're very generous. They let you take pictures and all the rest of it. So really nice. So
Lane, link me in on that, will you please? Lane just said in the chat room, apparently there's a live streaming webcam at Lanzarote Airport.
There is. I've been watching it this week.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, brilliant. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Please do, Lane. Stick that in an email to us, podcast@planetalkinguk.com, and I'll see if I can find it.
They broadcast in really good quality well. Yeah,
awesome.
I was watching one evening this week.
Hop to it, Lane. Hop
at
to
night,
it.
and the quality of the cam at night time is really good as well. And the camera's situated right at the end of the runway, so you can see the aircraft landing, taxiing, and stuff. It's really good.
Sounds good.
Well worth a look if
Absolutely.
you're there.
Anyway,
So
that's got nothing to do with what we're supposed to be talking about.
Well, it is
Sorry
aviation based.
Yeah.
To be fair,
and I started it. Who'd have thought that, eh?
So a quick hello to everyone who's joined us in the live chat room this evening. We've got loads of the family in there as always. Lane Street, hello to you. Shorty Crosgrove. We have got Richard Adams in the chat room. Andrew Wilson as well. Just scrolling down. Our main man Micah as well. Not forgetting
the blue
Micah.
Spanner of death.
He's our blue spanner of death this evening, along with Nev. Richard King, Neil Lanwarn, evening from Bruntingthorpe. He says.
Of course,
We'll be seeing you tomorrow, Neil.
Yeah.
The
Wi-Fi is obviously not too bad there, then.
No, the Wi-Fi must be good. Yeah, is the Wi-Fi good there? Is the 4G signal on the EE good?
It's not going to be any good to you with loads of people there. Why can't you get that into your head, Carlos?
It will. I have a good phone. Anyway, Mariana, hello as well.
It's got nothing to do with the phone. Oh my God.
Anyway, I'm gonna
help me, Nev, please.
Anyway, let's get Matt to do some work. So we are going to start the show then, as we do each week, with our rundown of the weekly news from around the world and the UK. So if you're ready, Matt.
Yes, I certainly am.
Good. And if you're ready, Nev.
Yes, completely.
Let's go. So, kicking off this week's first news story, this one is on the national.ae website, and the headline is Viking Airline armed with new Airbus plans transatlantic raid.
What?
Viking, it's that sort of Nordic thing.
Okay.
So a new Nordic raider is about to descend on Europe's leading airlines in the shape of a little-known carrier that's the launch customer for Airbus's latest jetliner. Primera Air, a specialist in holiday flights from Denmark, run by Icelander. Blimey, here we go.
Beg your pardon.
Harald Thorgerson, I
good.
probably pronounced that completely wrong, aims to take delivery of the first long-range version of the A321neo narrow-body aircraft in October this year, and use the extra miles it gives to offer transatlantic flights that are normally the preserve of larger twin-aisle aircraft. Primera is not alone in targeting the low-cost long-haul market from Europe's far north. Norwegian Air Shuttle has pioneered heavily discounted US flights with a fleet of 787s and is also a future customer for the Airbus long-range model. While WOW Air I was waiting.
Sorry, I nodded off there.
Specialises in transporting cash-conscious travellers prepared to change planes in Reykjavik en route to North America. In all three cases, the airlines have looked south to find a market. Primera commenced flights from London Stansted to Newark last month and will operate from Paris to and Birmingham as well, with services to Boston, Toronto, Washington as well. Norwegian has a major base at London Gatwick and also operates 787s from Barcelona, Paris and Rome, as well as deploying single-aisle 737s at the limits of their range from Britain to Ireland to the eastern US. WOW connects 21 European destinations, with 15 in the US and Canada via Iceland. So Thjorgersen said the airlines are being forced to look beyond their Nordic heartlands, partly as a result of subdued demand at home, drawing parallels with the economic pressures that are stoked the Viking invasion of northwest Europe more than 1,000 years ago. And the number of charter passengers out of Denmark is also unchanged over the last 5 years, and that's true across Scandinavia. We saw the same thing in 800 AD, he said. Blimey, they're kind of comparing history here with the current kind of things
800 AD. Wow.
Stansted alone has a catchment area.
Did they do much flying in 800 AD?
Stansted alone has a catchment area.
When did the Wright brothers start
of
there?
26 million people, according to Primera, which has established headquarters in Riga, Latvia, to minimise costs. That's about the same as the combined populations of Denmark, Sweden, Norway, Finland and Iceland. Larger airlines are awake to the threat and have begun operating their own lower-cost intercontinental services. And the story goes on. Primera's two A321LRs, equipped with extra fuel tanks, give a 4,000 nautical mile range. That's the longest for any current single-aisle model. They'll be sourced from the US, a leaser called AeroCap Holdings, NV, in order to gain first-mover advantage. From 2019, the fleet will also be swelled with as many as 20 Boeing 737 MAX 9 jets. For a small carrier like us, it's vital to get a head start, said Thjorgersen, and the low-cost market across the Atlantic is going to grow. People are unsure about it, but it was the same 25 years ago when Ryanair and EasyJet started. As a consumer, if I think the product is safe, comfortable, accessible, and goes to the right airports, he's going to offer the best price. Now, obviously, we've covered stories where they talk about narrow or single-aisle narrow-bodied aircraft flying from the UK to the US, but it's still, I don't know. When you talk about going anywhere long haul, the States or Australia or anywhere, you kind of put a wide-bodied, bigger, larger jet on that kind of route. Anything small. Well, mind you, saying that, you've done obviously America on the 757.
Yes, I have. I don't know if I mentioned it at all. I
a few times.
I thought I'd been quite mute on the subject.
But
okay.
yeah, Primera.
Actually, on the subject of flying, may I introduce somebody who has just joined us, who is rather partial to quite a lot of flying. Good evening, Sir Brian.
Hello, hello, hello. Is the microphone actually working?
You sound like you're coming from the computer, but it's all right, sir. It's fine.
Yeah, first time with Google Hangouts, and the computer's not picking up the mic.
One of the things I love about this show is when you ask the listeners to send you some information, they do exactly that. And I have to say that, as promised, Lane has sent me the link for what we were talking about at the top of the show. And I'd never seen this before. And this is absolutely incredible.
Is that the live feed, Matt?
This is the live feed from Lanzarote Airport.
That's where I stood.
Yeah, we've literally we've got something here, look, just about to take off. This is absolutely amazing.
That is a ATR. I think you'll find it's an ATR 72, I think that is.
This
one
is,
of the there's a 737 just coming in from
absolutely. The left. So to go to it, anybody. So as I say, we're watching this at the moment. It's available on YouTube. There's a sort of link in there, and it is basically it's www.lanzarotewebcam.com, and it is literally the. It's just amazing. Jet2 holidays. Somebody's just going. In fact, actually, that's who Lisa and Lee are flying back with tomorrow. So yeah, that is just so cool. I didn't. Of all people, you'd have thought I'd have known these things exist.
No
right,
audio.
that's all right.
Yeah,
that's fine.
video.
Yeah, no, I don't mind that there's no audio.
It's good quality though. It's good quality.
It is. It's
yeah.
absolutely incredible volume.
Yeah.
I'm going to be dipping in and out of that all through the show. Anyway, on to story number 2, and it is on the Sun newspaper, or the sun.co.uk, obviously where we go for all of our very important aviation related stories. And actually I've forgotten, one of our listeners actually sent us this story in, didn't they?
They did, yeah.
And it was Carlos will look it up to remind me in a second. Ryanair is the story, obviously, because it's story number 2. And a Ryanair flight was clipped by another plane as both prepared to take off from Stansted Airport. This is not the kind of news that you want to hear. The aircraft set to fly to Dublin as hundreds head to Ireland today to vote in the abortion referendum was hit by a Primera flight, which is not great. Now, obviously, Primera have only just started flying out of Stansted, if my memory serves. So,
that was the last story.
Indeed, and they're flying transatlantic. They're flying out to there. Anyway, the wing of a Primera flight to Malaga clipped the tail of a stationary Dublin-bound Ryanair aircraft as they were both on the taxiway before 3 fire engines raced to the scene. Primera passenger Razik Usenbai, 26, from London, told...
That's all important.
Absolutely, told Sun Online the collision came following a series of delays on the flight to Malaga. He said that there was an apparent problem with the air conditioning and we'd been delayed for 2 hours. It felt like we were taxiing very, very quickly. He felt a bump like when you drive over something in a car and then you could hear the wing scraping down the other plane. That's never a noise you want to hear, is it? That's just awful. A spokesperson for the airport said that both planes were required to return to the stand after the minor airfield incident at around 9:15 a.m. Tom Hart, 30, who is age 30, I don't know why that's relevant, was on board the Primera flight when he felt the blow from the Ryanair jet. He says around 200 passengers are now stranded at Stansted Airport and haven't been offered an alternative flight until 1:30 a.m. He told the Sun Online we had already been delayed because of technical issues, and as we were on the taxiway we felt a blow. I wasn't sure what had happened. I felt like there had been a strong wind, but when he looked out the window it became clear what had happened. We had to wait on the plane for around about an hour before we were brought off, and you could see the dents in the wing of our plane. We're now totally stranded, and the earliest alternative flight they've been able to offer us is 1:30 a.m. tomorrow. Now, I must admit, I didn't realise that much flying took place sort of after midnight, really, at Stansted. But there have been no representatives from the airline giving us any information, and it's been left to the general airport staff. People are furious. We've got a wedding to get to tomorrow, and other people have seen their plans thrown into chaos. Now, whilst I am sorry that all these people have been inconvenienced, surely to goodness they have to understand that when something like this has occurred, and let's be honest, people do make mistakes, you can't just risk getting in an aeroplane and flying away.
No, that
so that story, yes, that was from Richard, wasn't it? Yes, thank you, Richard, for that story. Yeah,
emailed into the show, so
yes,
thanks. Yeah, thanks for that. But yeah, I must stress that this it's one of those stories that's glorified by the Sun, drama, airport drama, but it was just a clip. It wasn't a kind of one of those disastrous things.
No, I know, but it's just I'm sorry, everybody. I'm sorry their plans were inconvenienced, but it's. I mean, presumably, what would happen in a situation like that? Presumably, both aeroplanes have got to be inspected, and then
even minor, even if it was minor, and there was no sign of any damage, both the aircraft would be, took to one side, offloaded, and the people will be put on another aircraft, kind of thing, until they're checked, basically.
Until everybody's happy.
Until everyone's happy, okay, Until the engineers have looked and said, yeah, that's okay and fine. So even with the minor incidents like this, that would be checked over.
Indeed. Look, sorry, I've got to come back to this because we've got something coming into land now. I'm sorry, I'm absolutely fascinated by this thing. I'm not going to be concentrating on the show at all this evening now. I'm just going to be watching this. This is literally like, oh, I wish there was one of these at Heathrow.
God,
How
blimey,
amazing
that'd be
would
lovely.
that be?
Perhaps we should mention that to Adam.
I don't think we should.
Get it.
I think we'll never. I don't think we'll ever be allowed to talk to him ever again if we were to make such things. As I say, LanzaroteWebcam.com. If you want to have a look at this, this is absolutely amazing. Oh, look at that!
Bit of a
Little bit of a puff of smoke there. Very clear. Oh, I just love it. Oh, I'm sorry. Anyway, you were saying?
Anyway,
sorry, Brian. What were you saying there?
No, I just said he smacked that one down kind of hard.
Yes, absolutely.
It's a family show.
Indeed, very good. Yes, a little bit of a puff of. We'll just call it a poof of smoke.
Poof of
shall we?
smoke, yes.
Absolutely.
So moving on to the next story, and Nev, a bit of a BA one for you.
It is, and it's on the btcmanager.com, which just happens to be the initials of Brian T. Coleman.
Very good point. Yes, very good. Yes.
I wonder if he's got anything to do with this.
Yes,
but it's all about Bitcoin, and it says that British Airways is testing VChain's blockchain check-in service. The new service has already received the endorsement of IAG, which is the parent company of British Airways. In its purest form, it details a system whereby airlines and government agencies will be able to verify the identities of people travelling against a vast database held on a blockchain. The system works by checking the validity and reputation of travel documents against a distributed database. The fact that blockchain technology powers the service will allow for the verification of personal information without the need of sharing any information with third parties. If British Airways gets a signal back from VChain that they and others have seen a certain data set 20 times before and have been happy every time, it helps them make smarter assumptions about you as a security threat, they said in a statement.
Wow.
British Airways parent company IAG has already invested in VChain through its Hangar 51 startup, underscoring its endorsement of the service. The company is currently conducting tests of the new service upon which it could be expanded into a full commercial product. The use of the new service by British Airways should go a long way to building its reputation and credibility, given the vast number of passengers that the airline handles excuse me, from Heathrow Airport on a daily basis. And the fact that the airport handles more than 200,000 passengers a day all but calls for an efficient system able to verify travel documents in the fastest way possible to ease congestion. The award-winning new service continues to arouse keen interest in part because it's designed to ensure the privacy of people's information during the check-in process. VChain appears to have taken a leaf out of Microsoft's book. I'm pausing for the comedy.
Now.
There, obviously, which is currently working on a project that seeks to make it easy for people to own and control their identity in a decentralized manner on a blockchain. IAG is not the only company to have taken notice of VChain and its potential impact when it comes to verifying the identity of people. The new service has already won a seal of approval from Prince Andrew, the Duke of York, at the 9th pitch.
Oh well, I mean, sign up to it immediately then. If Prince Andrew has endorsed something, I mean, surely that's yeah. Anyway, sorry, sorry, I ran out of enthusiasm there. I'm so sorry.
Yes, it says that VChain emerged as the winner amongst 42 blockchain and cybersecurity startups that pitched their innovation at a glitzy ceremony at St James's Palace. Could I just point out one slight flaw with this story? If they're going to be doing all of this, why are they publicising it? Shouldn't it be kind of just in the background a little bit? Because this has now alerted everybody to what might be going on, and therefore potential
working out ways to get around.
Criminals will find ways around it.
Yeah, this is not been thought out, has it? Let's be honest. This is
anyway. I'm sure it's a great idea, and there won't be any problems whatsoever, and it'll be a completely smooth ride.
So I'm sort of right. Yes, okay. I'm going to gloss over that, and just to say, so now this Bitcoin thing, which I must admit, even as an IT guy, I'm a little bit unaware of. Is this? And I've heard two analogies actually been mentioned to me by friends of mine even this week. One which is the Bitcoin thing, and then the other one is this cryptocurrency. Now, are they one and the same thing, or is it?
I think they are. That's the impression I get.
Yeah, and you've got what Bitcoin is a type of cryptocurrency over say like another brand, if you like. So Bitcoin is the brand, and is that? Oh, I don't know. Perhaps
right, where Ethereum would be another cryptocurrency. So there are multiple types, and
yeah.
Even for those that want to participate in an alternative one, there are things like cannabis coin or hemp coin.
Right.
So,
well,
yeah, so it seems like everyone that has their own special industry is coming up with their own cryptocurrency.
And I assume they have very sort of relaxed interest rates and things like that, obviously being that sort of... No? Okay. I've digressed.
It's all very technical.
Yeah,
I'd rather just deal with pounds and euros.
Pounds and shillings and pence.
And pence and stuff,
yeah. Yes, absolutely.
So the next story then, hopefully, Brian, you've got the next story.
Yeah, I do. Is the microphone okay, or?
I've heard worse. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I'm happy.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, no, not at all.
I just didn't have enough time. I rushed home to get here to.
I know. Good.
And we are.
Didn't have a chance to set up the hardware.
We're entirely grateful, sir. Thank you very much.
So this story comes from the Hollywood Reporter, and it's, oddly enough, a United Airlines story.
Oh.
United introduces partnership with private terminal at LAX airport. So can I say my airline of choice? The airline I tend to participate with an awful lot. And
yeah, why not?
The private terminal, something that I absolutely want to check out because this is truly a spectacular offering that they have. And for the hoity-toity and ultra-rich and celebrities that surround the Los Angeles area. Anyway, back to the story. And it looks like United's getting ready, although 2 years delayed, to open the Polaris business class lounge. So that's scheduled to open this fall, so that's nice. And the article reads, United Airlines is upping its VIP game at LAX. The airline is offering exclusive access to the private suite at LAX, a brand new terminal with personalized check-in, bag drop-off, and private TSA screening. The terminal, which has an entranceway from the congested airport traffic loop, offers individual suites with snacks, flat screens, and a full bar while you wait. Absolutely something that I need to get used to. United promises guests will only need to walk 70 feet from car to plane. 70 feet? How could... they couldn't make it 60? Sheesh.
It's very specific, isn't it?
Yes. So it chauffeurs them across the runway area in a BMW 7 Series sedan. An 8-person team will also be assigned to each client to help keep paparazzi at bay. A problem I have every time.
Of course, well, absolutely. Every time you're flying. Yes, absolutely.
Yes. And the usual rate for a service is $4,500, though there's no membership fee for United customers. Yay! But only when you book through a travel agent or corporate booking desk.
Right.
Yeah, it's a little bit pricey for this 8-person personalized chauffeur-driven service, but still not bad if you have money to burn.
I quite like the idea that it's sort of like a chauffeur-driven sort of door-to-door. You get dumped off at the lounge. You know, there's a lot of that I quite like. The nearest I've ever got to, I've never experienced a lounge. I have to say, I've never experienced a lounge. The nearest I got to it was when last time myself and Mum flew. We had this special assistance that I'd never really sort of experienced before, and that is probably the closest I've ever got to having like an airport lounge, because they took us to our own little air-conditioned pod of the airport, if you like, to wait until we were allowed to board. But we certainly weren't offered any beer or anything like that.
Yeah, so this truly is a unique experience, at least in the States. And again, it's not part of United Airlines. It's a separate company, and they have a bunch of individual suites. So you and your family or traveling companions, whoever, it's really set up like someone's living room. And there's an individual bar, and you can drop off your laundry, and basically people will go shopping for you. So really anything that you need or desire, this staff of 8 will take care of and accommodate you. and it's on the other side of the airport, and that's why they have to drive across in the car to get to the proper terminal building. But then you get to walk up the stairs at the jetway and just board the plane and avoid the entire airport mess. So that part is really, really cool.
I'm trying to sort of pop the pictures up that
I say the
that
pictures that
came
are on
with
the
it.
story. There's obviously a picture of like the room, as you say, Brian, like a
Yeah, there it is.
yeah.
Yep.
It's like anyone's.
And there are
bedroom.
multiple rooms like this, so you are cordoned off from the other celebrities or high rollers that are taking advantage of the service.
I just like being isolated away from the other people. I'm not fussed about being, celebrities might be more interesting, but I just like the idea of being isolated from other humans.
I love the
in
sweet
general.
dispensers on the wall.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, not bad, huh?
indeed.
Mind you, for that price, I'd expect.
Yeah,
well,
sort of gold-plated
plated
sweets. Yeah,
sweets.
absolutely. I want them to be made from gold leaf. This is the issue, isn't it? And the other one, the other picture that I will just very quickly pop up while I'm waiting. Oh, I've pressed the wrong button. Sorry. I'm having one of those days today. Oh, it's because we started on
Are
time.
you
I
watching
think.
another plane land?
Yeah, no. I have had to close that just for fear of doing that. But there's the private suite thing where you sort of so you arrive by helicopter, get thrown into a is that a BMW? Oh dear.
I don't know. No.
Oh, dear,
Is that a BM?
or is it a Merc?
Yeah, it's a 7 Series.
Nev would know. He loves BM.
Yeah, they're his favourite vehicle, aren't they, sir? Yeah,
Well, it probably has to drive in a straight line because it can't use its indicator.
absolutely. This is it. Yes, yeah. No, but they're optional extras, aren't they? Indicators on a BMW. Yeah, absolutely. It's one of those. There's lots of things that I really quite like about this. How about you, Nev? Would you like to experience something like this?
Well, it'd be great, wouldn't it? But I just the practicality of it is just well, especially imagine this at Heathrow with all the congestion that is in and around the ground areas, for example. It'd be stuck in a traffic jam behind the bus all the time.
No, but Neff, here's a thing that United is doing that I think is really, really smart, and I usually don't say that about United, is you can purchase this the private suite as part of your ticket price. So they bury the cost in with the ticket. So if you have a flexible, sorry about that, if you have a flexible travel policy or company that doesn't scrutinize the price of your ticket, it's not broken out as a separate line item. It's just the cost of the airfare.
Gotcha.
So I think that's really smart on their part, and I think a lot of people will end up taking advantage of this.
Too right, absolutely. It is a little bit of an update, obviously, in the fact there's nothing going on, I'm afraid, at Lazarote at the moment. Nothing going on at all.
Bit
Sorry, absolutely.
So next story.
I'm sorry, I'm now officially. I'm not going to be able to read out stories anymore. I'm sorry.
Now you see
I'm
why I was
absolutely
watching this the other
obsessed
night.
by this. Absolutely. Anyway, sorry, Carlos.
So,
carry on.
Carlos, I can't finish with the other bad part about United.
Oh yeah. What's that?
No,
What's
do.
that?
Sorry.
Carry on.
Sorry.
Yeah, because this is so. The article continues.
There's
The
a bad
second
part?
feature, the Polaris Lounge at LAX, will open this fall, and it's only been under construction for 2 years or so. The original room was so incredibly undersized. They had to redesign it and acquire more space for this lounge. It will be really nice once it's opened. I've been able to take a preview of the room while it's under construction. But the whole farce of United having the special Polaris class when a vast majority of the fleet still doesn't have the Polaris seats. There's only, they just opened the Polaris Lounge in San Francisco. So there's now one in Chicago, one in San Francisco. They're just so far behind schedule on this. I really think that they should be ashamed for what they've done or haven't done. So.
Obviously,
That's it. The article continues with a bunch of other fun stuff, but yeah, that was basically it. I just needed to wag my finger at United
And say, "Oi!"
Polaris
Absolutely.
rollout.
actually,
It's just been
on
a
that note,
disaster.
Brian, have you had any nice, exciting flights with United lately?
Nice, yes. Exciting, no. I was recently in Germany, and so I flew over on United in Polaris class, and the crew, as I reported on the Airplane Geeks podcast when I talked about that, the flight attendants were completely indifferent over every passenger on board. They did, I think, the bare minimum amount of work, and it just reinforces, I think, why people prefer to fly non-U.S. carriers for a premium cabin.
Yeah.
That's unfortunate.
So and again, I got there safely. I really can't complain because I did have a lie flat seat, but it's still not the product that United's promising, and it really would have been nice if the flight attendants actually put forth a tad bit of effort in doing their job. But
I mean, what do you
experience the miracle of flight? I got there safely, so
I mean, what
all
do
the
you,
rest is gravy, I guess.
what do you think the reason behind that is, Brian? I mean, it just it always baffles me where it's a product that you're expecting a certain product, and then for whatever reason it's not there when you get it. I mean, here
Right.
it would be like false advertising and all sorts. I mean, what do you think's behind it? Is it just laziness or?
Well, there are two parts. So there's the rollout of the hard product, which is just delayed. And as they upgrade their planes, when they get new planes, they're coming out with new Polaris seats, but United's getting, quite honestly, very few new planes. And when they go to refurbish the planes, they're on a schedule, but it's something like a 5-year schedule
Right.
that they're going to add the new seats. So that's a problem. The thing with the clubs, talking about and announcing the clubs and just not having them available, again, I think that's just shameful on their part, and the company should have either delayed the rollout or
Yeah.
spent the money up front to
do it all in one hit, sort of.
have it ready. Now, having apathetic flight crew, there's an awful lot of reasons for that. I think a lot of it is management decisions, policies and procedures that have been put in place that prevent them from doing the job. I think some of it is the integration of Continental and United. It's just taken way too long, operating under separate unions, so the flight rules are different for them. It's just been a mess. Those are just some of the reasons why I think United is suffering so badly. The other interesting thing just about the particular flight that I was on, just comparing and contrasting an international carrier versus a U.S. domestic carrier, because I recently flew to Taipei on EVA Air. And when they set up the table for a meal, they came out, they placed the linen cloth, they set the table so the knife and fork were separate. Whereas on United, they were rolled up in the napkin.
Right.
And it was up to the customer to set their table.
So I suppose it felt like sort of dinner service.
I know I'm complaining about something or commenting on something that's really minor, but it's the attention to detail. When it came time for everyone to go to sleep and with the bed service, on United, I had to ask for a mattress pad and a pillow. Whereas on EVA, they came around and said, "Can we make your chair into a bed now?"
Right.
And some people said yes, and the flight attendant did it for them.
Wow.
And others said, no, give me an hour or 10 minutes or whatever, and they came back, or just leave me the stuff and I'll do it myself. And it was taken care of. Whereas on United, every single passenger had to ask for the stuff, and then the flight attendant would just hand it to them and walk away.
Wow. I mean it's like a different world, isn't it? It's essentially that's what you're describing, and I suppose the only time that could be compared, as I say, I've got ringing in my head a flashback to a Nev's passenger experience not that long ago, where United and British Airways were mentioned in the same breath, and United was considered better. That's there's a damning, it's a worrying time. We haven't had you on since, Brian, because I wanted to talk to you about that. It was just. my boss and so Sarah and Charlotte, they went to Las Vegas, which is where Nev's going, probably on the same plane. To be fair, Nev.
Yeah, could well be.
Absolutely. So we're hoping that it'll be a better experience than the one he had. As I say, and their experience was nothing but sort of damning, I think, to be fair. And they did say that the flight that we had, to New York with United was far superior. So they can, whether that's a good analysis or not, because essentially their flight was so bad that United was considered luxury. I don't know.
Yeah, it really does depend on what you're comparing it to. That's for sure.
Well, and this is the thing, isn't it? So there is hope. There is hope. Anyway, we must move on to the next story. And this one is with you, I think, Carlos.
Which is on the CNBC.com website. And it's a story regarding the new 777 from Boeing, which has got the folding wings. Well, wing tips, it should be said. So the third iteration of Boeing's popular 777 airliner series will be able to retract part of its wings. The FAA recently signed off on the proposed designs. Folding wings have been employed for some military planes on aircraft carriers, but this will be the first instance on a commercial plane. The upcoming 777X aircraft will sport an extended wingspan of 235 feet. A design change that will bring some more flight efficiency, but might not fit into how airports are built. The folding wing will allow pilots to reduce the plane's wingspan down to 212 feet. Small enough to continue using terminals designed to accommodate older 777 aircraft. The wing transformation will only work when the plane is on the ground, and the FAA developed a special conditions document to ensure that the technology meets safety standards. Engineers developed primary and secondary latch systems that will keep the wings fully extended during flight. And Boeing is scheduled to bring the new 777X series to market in 2020. Now, I'm really looking forward to seeing what this is going to look like in operation. And obviously, there's lots of systems in place to safeguard, obviously, as it said, sort of redundant systems to make sure it doesn't kind of fold in flight. What do you think of this, Nev, the folding wing tips on here?
Well, it's all very new. Well, it's obviously new in commercial aviation. There's been stuff in the military for some time, but they're going to have to make absolutely sure that it's spot on, isn't it? And but of course, it's no different from flaps or retractable landing gear in a sense, is it? So it's got to be absolutely totally reliable, and there's got to be some contingency if something doesn't work at all. So yeah, interesting to see how that comes out.
So I presume this is the wings are like folded out, if you like, before they take off. I mean, so this is they sort of taxi away from the airport and then make them full length essentially. I mean, they just look like sharklets, don't they? I mean, that's the weird thing.
I think they did that specifically to make them look like sharklets, so passengers wouldn't be
freaking out
or scared over it. And most of the people, I think, won't notice it anyway.
Yeah.
And it's not that large of a wing surface area, so I think even if one were to become unpinned in flight, I really don't think it would affect the aircraft all that much anyway. So
I'm sure they'll test the bejeebers out of this
yeah, indeed. I think yeah.
But no, I'm looking forward to the 777X. That'd be good. Nice to see the new 777 coming online.
Agreed.
Yeah. So next story.
They've been doing this in military aircraft for decades.
They have. Yeah.
So it's really not new technology, and I think nothing to be scared about. It's actually, I think, kind of an innovative solution for commercial aircraft, and if it improves performance and everyone will end up benefiting as a result. So I'm like you, Carlos, looking forward to flying on the aircraft.
Yeah, perhaps Airbus might pick this up with the 380.
Yeah,
make it less larger.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
So the next story, Matt, for you is on another awesome publication.
Yes, it's the
outlet.
Daily Mirror. It's the mirror.co.uk, which I know is one of Nev's favourite fish and chip wrappers, I believe. But this is... the headline is UK... you're breaking my little aeroplane over there now. Look, do you mind? Excuse me. Thank you. Leave my Boeing, 737-800
the Aviation
alone.
Herald, that one.
Absolutely. UK airline picks up the title of Best Travel Brand of the Year. And it's a budget one too. So the popular budget airline has been named which travel brand of the year thanks to its low prices and customer service. And this will come as no surprise to you to discover that it's not actually Ryanair. And it is when you're off on holiday, you naturally want everything to go off without a hitch. From the moment you head to the airport, after all, delayed flights or rude fellow passengers can make for a stressful start to what should be all relaxation. So you want to know you're in good hands when you pick an airline. Now, which is a publication here in the UK, if you're not familiar with it, that it's all about customers, isn't it? It's sort of customer focus groups and things like that. So which has revealed the winner of its travel brand of the year award, and it's good news for Brits on a budget. That's because low-cost airline Jet2 has topped the list, proving you don't always need to splash the cash if you want a good experience. The Which Awards recognised that despite a disastrous year for airlines, Jet2 stood out for providing its customers with cheap tickets, good customer service and timely compensation. Steve Lee, commercial director of Jet2 and Jet2 Holidays, who collected the award, said, "We are very proud to be named Which Travel Brand of the Year, as it is a ringing endorsement of the services that we give our customers. These coveted awards are given to organisations that provide the very best customer experience, and it does go to show that the investment and hard work that we put into delivering a VIP experience for our customers is very much working." So Peter Vickery-Smith, Which Chief Executive, said, "Since its inception, the Which Awards has been committed to rewarding brands who have consistently put their customers first. Which Awards are not handed out to just anyone. This year's winners have reached exceptional standards, delivering excellent products, services and value for money." I won't go on because it's sort of basically repeating itself, but I know, and I will talk to Lisa and Lee in the car on the way back tomorrow afternoon. I know that's who Lisa and Lee have flown out to Lanzarote with, and they chose Jet2 because of the amazing experience that they had the year previous, having the year before that always flown with Ryanair. And the one thing that they said that blew them away a bit was how smiley and happy the crew were to be doing their jobs, essentially, rather than miserable and depressed, which is just sort of a shame, really, because you sort of like to think that all cabin crew would be smiley and happy, but apparently that isn't the case.
So while you've been doing that story, Matt, I've gone online, as I do when we're doing these sorts of stories, and I've looked at the price of a flight for all three of us, me, you and Nev, to fly out to Lanzarote to do some plane spotting.
The only reason he hasn't included you, Brian, don't be offended, is because they don't fly out to America.
Sorry,
Brian.
So,
that's the only reason he hasn't included you. He's not being mean unnecessarily.
No. Yeah. so me, Matt and Nev will jet off next Thursday to do some plane spotting in Lanzarote, where we had a look at earlier. And if we're going to stay light and just carry a little hand luggage bag, it'll cost me and Matt and Nev the total sum of £528 return.
Wow.
That works out around about $700 for us, for our US listeners. About $700 for me, Matt and Nev to fly to Lanzarote next week to do some plane spotting. How about that, Nev?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'll be there. Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wonderful.
We could then lift this footage here and just we could be on the plane landing at Lanzarote in a Jet2 plane.
It's quite busy there now.
It is very busy. Yeah, absolutely. There's lots of stuff taking off and that at the moment, isn't there? Yeah,
so moving on,
I might come back to this.
How far of a flight is that for you guys?
Ooh, Lanzarote
about 5 hours.
Lanzarote is about 4 hours.
3 and a half, 4 hours.
Okay.
Yeah,
well,
it's
there
not
we
too
are.
far.
No, okay.
And it's very windy there as well. That's one thing we found out when we were there.
Yes.
It's a bit of a windy isle. Island.
Indeed, yeah. You came home early, didn't you?
Yes, yes. The weather was so bad, we flew home early.
Yeah.
It's not called Lanzarote for nothing.
Now look here, Nev. That is not accept. How very dare you? I had one of the nicest. It's a TUI. There's a TUI aeroplane here. Look, here we go. There you go. Look, so I love it. We've dotted the I's, crossed the T's, and put you in the middle. So
yeah,
there we are.
Does
that mean I get a free flight?
You don't get this on any other aviation podcast. Look, guys and girls, for those of you in the YouTube chat room, live views there of Lanzarote Airport.
I really do need. I'm getting nearly as bad as you lot.
I know. So moving on to the next story, and Nev, this is a bit of a tech story.
I just missed it. It then took off.
Oh dear!
Honestly,
Sorry.
Rookie mistake. Honestly,
this is an interesting story on CNN Travel website. It's called Jabberbox, an airport lounge all to yourself.
Ooh.
It says, haven't quite got that executive club status, or just find airport lounges overwhelming? Well, a new concept has appeared in Terminal B of New York's LaGuardia Airport that could be the answer. Meet Jabberbox. These windowed booths can be rented to gain access to Wi-Fi, USB charging, mood lighting, flight trackers, and audio speakers in a private space. Currently, access costs $10 for 15 minutes, $15 for 30 minutes, and $30 for 1 hour. The idea was born when co-founder Brian Hackathorn found himself marooned in Midtown Manhattan with nowhere to make a work phone call. Starbucks was too noisy, plus he didn't want to have the confidential conversation in public. He envisaged a new concept, the idea of an on-demand, reservable ecosystem of private spaces, as his co-founder Jeremy Jennings describes it. Technology is related to mobility, and there's really no place to find privacy in technology, Jennings told CNN Travel. The duo joined forces to get Hackathorn's idea off the ground and into public spaces. We started looking at the airport demographic as one of the largest places of our captured audience. A mobile worker, a professional traveller that's always on the go, said Hackathorn. Jabra team envisaged their booth as enhancing, not replacing, the airport lounge experience. Lounges are a great place for certain amenities, but you still can't find true privacy, a place to do focused work. So I think we're a great extension of that, says Hackathon. The entrepreneur said the highest usage of the Jabra boxes at LaGuardia is near the business lounges. I think intuitively, what's that saying is that the user is looking for a certain guest experience, he explains. And they can go out of the lounge, use a Jabra box, and then go back into the lounge for their free cocktail and a place to sit. So I think it's truly an adjacency. Hackathorn said that his creations are workspaces, not phone booths, and eliminate claustrophobia with extra space. You don't feel as though you're within an enclosed chamber. You feel as though you're in a nice, comfortable, cool, calm environment, he said. At the moment, passers-by can see into the box whilst it's in use, so creators are testing the use of screens to add privacy. Mitch Nadler, the Director of Commercial Development and Operations for LaGuardia, Gateway Partners, describes the booth as a great enhancement to the travel experience. They're very popular. We see it as a walk through the terminal. We see the usage. We see people stopping in their tracks in amazement that there's this opportunity and option for them out by the gates, he said. Nadler hasn't ruled out installing more of these at LaGuardia Airport, and the booth's creators hope the pilot program can be rolled out to other airports, both domestically and internationally. They could also be installed in commercial buildings or used in hospitality. If they take off, the days of using airport delays as an excuse to avoid work could soon be a thing of the past. Well, I don't know. What do you think, gents? This just looks like taking up a lot of space, but I don't know. I
don't know. I actually think it's a good idea, and I wouldn't mind seeing them in the club itself.
Yeah.
There are a lot of opportunities where, like they said, having a confidential conversation you don't want everyone else to hear, and having that private area would certainly be nice. Yeah, and there are certain people when they're talking on the phone, quite honestly, I don't want to listen to them.
No.
So it'd be nice if they would go away and sit in their little work area booth thingy.
Yes.
Well, of course, that is what the telephone box as we know it was a telephone box for a reason, wasn't it? Because it meant that you could have a sort of private-ish conversation without absolutely everybody being able to hear you for hundreds of miles. I mean, it's just, and I quite like the fact that it's got the little touch screen and everything all built into it, so that you can sort of, has it got like entertainment stuff in it as well? So as a punter, you could just sort of rent it if you like.
It's got connectivity for Wi-Fi and USB and all this sort of stuff. So I just hope it smells better than the average London telephone box.
There's a thought. Yes.
Mike has said in the chat room it's an air-conditioned telephone booth without a telephone.
Yes, that is true. Yes, there we go. Yes, sorry, I'm back to me, Lanzarote. Something's coming into land now. I'm sorry. Come on then. What aeroplane is this? It's got. I don't know.
It's got wings.
It has got wings. Yes, absolutely. Oh dear. I wish I'd never found this site now.
Welcome
it's like
to the.
Yeah, absolutely.
Welcome to the live stream.
Look, come on, you should be slightly proud of me. I'm actually geeking out on aeroplanes.
I know.
Should be a small part of you all should be very proud of me.
It's scary. What have we released?
Yes,
here
you've released this monster into the world.
Honestly,
just when you thought it was safe to go outside. Yeah, no, honestly.
Well, it's a 737-800, judging by the winglets.
Oh, listen to the expert there. Yeah, absolutely. Is it a Ryanair one?
Slightly flattened base of the engine.
Oh, look at the
CFM56.
Yeah.
So that's probably going to be Thompson, Chewy, one of those inclusive tour operators.
Yes. I guess by the blueness that I think I would agree with you. Anyway, sorry.
that's
I've become very distracted.
That's actually come from Charles de Gaulle, Paris. That one.
Has it?
Yeah, that one.
But the south of France, they don't need to go to Lazarote for holidays. It's nice.
It's doing 29 knots at the moment.
Is it?
Ground speed, yeah.
So, actually, one of these questions that I keep meaning to ask you plane geeks out there, what is it? How accurate is that data on that app? How behind is it?
I think Flight Radar 24 is around about. I think it's, if my memory reminds me correctly, it's about 3 or 4. I think it's 3 or 4 seconds delay.
Right. Okay. So it's not far
between
out. Okay.
the information you see, and it's fairly. Yeah. There's a subscription service with them. You can pay a certain amount of money each month, and you get like a huge amount of information.
I did have it on a trial for a little while. Actually,
it's really good.
Was just Actually, sorry. The thing on their YouTube channel here says addictive 1080p HD live streaming, and I have to say, that's it. I'm officially hooked.
It is, yeah.
Sorry.
Anyway, moving on.
I'll find something else to do with my life shortly.
Matt, a new addiction for you. Gotta love it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, yeah. Well, it makes a change from the one of food, which is my current addiction. So yeah, it's got to be a step in the right direction. Oh no, I've just seen the story that's coming up next.
So moving on to the next story, and this is something for all the pet lovers out there, Brian.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought because it was from agedcare101.com.au, I was wondering if it was just because it's old. That's the reason why you gave me this.
No, not at all, Brian.
I think that's a fair assumption. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's horrible like that, You don't know half of the things that I have to put up with, Brian. Honestly, you don't.
But it goes, no more snakes on planes. U.S. airline bans emotional support spiders, goats, and hedgehogs.
As you do. Yeah.
Gotta love that. So, bizarre and true. American Airlines has updated its emotional support animal policy, and it's barring ferrets, goats, hedgehogs,
ferrets,
sugar glider.
Oh my goodness.
I have no idea what that is. Amphibians, insects, reptiles, rodents, spiders, and snakes from flights July 1st. So also on the list are animals that are unclean or has an odor. Any creature with tusks, horns, or hooves, miniature horses trained as service animals are exempt. Go figure. And non-household birds, such as, is it kooks? I've never heard that before. Or birds of prey. So it's nice that you cannot take your
Shucks.
on a plane.
You
Yeah,
can't
chickens.
take your bird of prey with you. Oh, well, that's a shame. There was me hoping to do a bit of falconry on the plane on the way over. I mean, honestly, what the hell's going on? It's just like...
But wait, that's coming up in a second.
Oh,
so,
no.
yeah. So what is an emotional support animal, you ask? The U.S. Service Animal and Support Animal Registry defines them as an animal that provides comfort just by being with a person.
Oh, Buddha. Right.
Which I think pretty much covers every animal if it provides comfort. Anyway, so it says, but after a 40% jump in people bringing them on their flights between 2016 and 2017, American Airlines says that animals don't qualify unless they have been trained to perform a specific job or task. That said, you can always fly with another more animal-friendly airline. Last year, a Saudi prince bought tickets for 80 of his pet falcons.
I remember that.
So Matt, there you go.
You do.
Yeah,
right.
You can fly on Etihad with 80 falcons flying around.
Right. Okay. That is kind of my the idea of my worst nightmare. I do have this little thing. It's not a phobia as such, but the idea of birds flying in a confined space makes me a little unnerving. It has to be said. This picture that I'm looking at here is essentially all of those fears wrapped up into one nice caption.
It's just bizarre, honestly. I mean,
is.
well, the picture you put up on the beginning of that story,
the emotional support horse.
Emotional support
yes,
horse.
absolutely, it's the way forward.
I don't know. I mean,
but who was it? Captain Al was saying that he wanted to bring his emotional support whale on the plane.
Right. Okay.
Or was it an elephant? I can't remember which.
No, well, the whale. I think he was referring. I think the whale was referring to his eating habits. I don't think that had got anything to do with emotional support animals. But
Lane has made a good point in the chat room. Lane Street has said, "What happens when you mix a bird of prey and a snake on a plane?"
Oh dear, that sounds like a very weird movie. I've got to be honest. It's just not something I would want to be going to see.
A tasty lunch for the bird.
Well, he wouldn't need food service during the flight, would he? He could
Actually, Nev,
Nev,
what would be your choice of emotional support pet?
Brace yourselves, everyone.
I would say it would definitely be a bird, because if the aircraft ever had any problems with its flaps, then obviously the bird might be able to assist.
Right. That's not where I was expecting you to go. I'm delighted that...
I thought that was going to be one of Nev's one.
I had a terrible...
No, I didn't have any particular opinion about it, but I think that the type of animal that is being brought onto aircraft these days, I don't see much of it around Europe, but I think Brian would confirm that probably in the US there's a lot more of it there.
Do you think a lot of this emotional...
Yeah, but I don't know how many hedgehogs we have, though. Is emotional support hedgehogs really an issue in England?
Yeah.
I mean, is it possibly... Do you think it's these people like using the excuse of an emotional support animal to move their pet or creature or something like that from where they're currently staying to where they're going on holiday? Do you think it's something as cynically simple as that? I mean, don't get me wrong. If it's a guide dog, I completely get it, because that's totally different. That dog is literally your eyes. It's how you get from one part of the that's how you get from the terminal onto the aeroplane. Even if you've got an illness, and because I know some people, their dogs have been trained to identify when they're about to have a fit or something like that. And I completely get why that animal would be accompanying you, because to be honest with you, even if the crew got a warning early that perhaps you were about to have an incident of some description, that information has surely got to be useful to the crew as well. But I mean, it's like when has a horse ever been considered like I suppose people do find horses comforting, but I've never known a snake be considered comforting towards, is it just because I don't like snakes? I don't know.
Or because you're just not a goth. That could
good
be
point.
As well.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, I cut my fingernails and everything. I'm well posh.
So moving on to the next story. before any other pets get mentioned here.
Yes, okay.
This one is on the airlinegeeks.com website. And
not to be confused with
the
Airplane
Geeks.
Well,
No, this
quite
is
right,
the
absolutely.
Airline Geeks. And this is regarding an aircraft. I mean, this must be the last one, I think, in the world. And it's an aircraft we talk about quite frequently on the show, the Boeing 747. And this story says the last commercially operated Boeing 747 SP flown to retirement in Iran. So Iran's history of turbulent relations with Western nations has greatly impacted its aviation industry and forced aging aircraft to continue to fly as newer replacements were unobtainable. As a result, aviation enthusiasts from around the world frequently gather in Tehran to fly on some of the oldest and rarest aircraft still in operation. The Boeing 747 SP, operated by Iran Air, has been one of the many gems that Av Geeks sought to fly on before its retirement. Iran's national carrier was the first in the world to take delivery of the 747 SP when it received Echo Papa India Alpha Alpha in 1976. A great year that was.
It's a fabulous year.
Which it used on the Tehran to New York route. Within 2 years, the airline had received 3 more of the SPs. In addition to the SP fleet, the airline has flown 28 747s, including the Dash 100 and Dash 200 variants throughout the years. After decades of service to the airline, Iran Air's 4th 747 SP, Echo Papa India Alpha Delta, was stored at Tehran's Mahrabad airport. And Echo Papa India Alpha Alpha was flown to storage next year. And Echo Papa India Alpha Bravo is followed in 2015, and all 3 aircraft were just a few years short of 40 years old and were reaching the end of their airframe, landing gear and engine lifetimes. One aircraft, however, avoided retirement. Instead of being stored, Echo Papa India Alpha Charlie received a heavy maintenance check in 2013, according to Aerospace Talk IR, and re-entered the skies later that year in November for a sightseeing flight. When it emerged, it was the sole operating 747 SP in Iran Air's fleet. Following its maintenance check, the aircraft continued flying mostly to India. Unfortunately, the aircraft wouldn't remain in the skies for too long and later became a reserve aircraft when there were only few cycles left before it would require more maintenance. In 2015, just 2 years after it emerged from heavy maintenance, the aircraft was once again grounded, but not for long. During the summer of 2016, the aircraft took to the skies again, performing the only commercial flights of a 747 SP in the world. The plane didn't fly...
You're not saying it right.
In the world.
No, in the world. You've got to do it in the full
sorry.
Clarkson. It's,
Okay.
you know, it's like, in the world. Yeah, yeah.
So the plane didn't fly over 8 hours at any point and primarily flew between Tehran, Imam Kamuni Airport and Beijing, Mumbai and Kuala Lumpur. The aircraft, named Fars until 2009 when it was renamed Persian Gulf, was again stored at the airport in Tehran following a short period when it flew in 2016. The aircraft received some more maintenance work following its grounding, with rumours surfacing that the aircraft would once again take flight. However, months passed and the aircraft was still grounded. On May the 22nd, the 41-year-old aircraft, Echo Papa India Alpha Charlie, performed its final flight, a short repositioning flight between IKA and THR. Due to the need for more parking positions at Iran's Air's technical and maintenance facilities aprons, it was decided that the 747 SP would be scrapped instead of being stored. The 3 SP planes already stored had the Iran Air logos and liveries covered and were moved from the airline's maintenance ramp to an area northwest of the terminal to be scrapped and have their metal sold. Arriving on Wednesday, the aircraft will soon join the other 3 of the SPs at the scrapyard after its fuselage identity is covered. These aircraft are an iconic part of Iran's aviation history and each hold a rich flying history. With plans to have all 3 SPs scrapped in the next 3 months, Iran Air has just one 747 left, a 747-200 cargo variant. Now, it's a shame this is, because this is obviously a dying breed of the 747, the SP, and it's for those of you who can sort of picture the standard kind of 400 series 747 alongside an SP. It's as if someone's got the 747 and squished it up, Matt. If you can imagine that, it's a very shorter version, but I think it was it stood for special performance, if I remember rightly, the SP part. But
I thought it stood for short plane.
Short plane, yeah.
I mean that would work certainly as a description. Yeah, sorry, I didn't listen to any of that story. I was still watching me Lazarote airport thing. What have you created? Honestly, I blame you all. It's all your fault. The lot of you.
So moving on to the next story, and it's I
suppose I've got to read it now.
It's another Ryanair story, especially for Matt, and it's also concerning one of his favourite aircraft manufacturers.
Right, okay, so but that's Airbus.
Yes.
Oh, is it? Oh, right, okay, here we go. So on the
I know the words Ryanair and Airbus do not go together, but anyway, carry on.
Okay, so this is on the Bloomberg website, so it's bloomberg.com, and the headline is Airbus may finally crack Ryanair as O'Leary touts order prospect. Ooh, that is interesting. So Airbus SE may end up with a significant new customer as Ryanair Holdings plc looks to beef up a newly acquired unit that uses planes from the European manufacturer. Ryanair, which previously operated only Boeing aircraft, will expand the fleet at Austria's Lauda Motion to as many as 50 Airbus A320s over 4 years, and the narrow-body model could eventually account for 20% of the group's overall roster, Chief Executive Officer Michael O'Leary said in an interview on Monday. That might amount to more than 100 jets. Airbus has previously downplayed the chances of winning orders from Ryanair, suggesting the Irish carrier only wanted to secure deeper discounts from Boeing. O'Leary said his company could look to add aircraft to from the existing backlogs of both plane makers if airlines go bust, as oil prices climb, citing Norwegian Air Shuttle ASA as one operator where jets may be available. In a downturn, there will be opportunities as both Airbus and Boeing, O'Leary told at both. Sorry, I'm struggling to read here, so I'll read that again. In a downturn, there will be opportunities at both Airbus and Boeing, O'Leary told Bloomberg Television. If something does happen with Norwegian, they have huge order books and a lot of those aircraft will be floating around. We would like to opportunistically be able to jump onto some of them. Executive changes at Airbus may help ease relations with the Toulouse, France-based company. O'Leary added long-time sales chief John Leahy retired recently to be replaced by Eric Schultz, while Fabrice Briga, head of the jetliner unit, has also left, and CEO Tom Enders will depart early next year. We are Europe's largest airline, O'Leary said. We should have a supply relationship with Boeing, and we should also have a supply relationship with Airbus. Ryanair ranks as the region's #1 by passenger traffic, though other airlines are bigger, measured by traffic or customer times customers times the distance flown. The discount carriers traditionally favour the simpler structures in order to trim expenses, something that's led to them avoiding mixed fleets that could increase maintenance and operation costs. And actually that's where I'm surprised that I'm reading this story, really, because I thought that was one of the reasons why they went through, with that model, purely and simply because it's one set of spares. If everything is a 737-800, you're only carrying one lot of spares. Therefore, you can get better discounts by ordering more and all that kind of thing. I really can't see Ryanair wanting to change their model unless they are really unhappy with the service they're getting from Boeing.
No, I don't.
Do you think it is what, as they alluded at the top of the story there, that it is literally they're using it as a way of trying to get bigger discounts out of Boeing? If anyone would like to chip in.
Hello.
On that.
Well, my opinion about that is, imagine the crew training, the flight crew training, the cabin crew training, the spares holding the maintenance procedures. there's a lot of stuff to think about there, and I don't know. I think even by Ryanair standards, it would be quite a thing to do to sort of hold a bit of a gun to Boeing's head like this. So it's got a little bit longer to play out yet. I think there's other stuff going on in the background. So I think we'll have to wait maybe a couple of more months to see how this is really going to play out. But really, the Ryanair built their entire business model on a single aircraft type, just as Southwest did, and that's the whole point of it. So, and that's how EasyJet have done with Airbus.
Exactly,
as well. They got rid of all their Boeing aircraft, and now they're Airbus only.
It just doesn't add up. I don't think, does it? I think they are. I think they're tub thumping. I think they're sort of threatening to go to Airbus to get a bigger discount with Boeing.
Have you seen who's in the chat room?
No, I haven't.
Captain Jet.
Is he? Oh dear! Stand by your beds, everyone. A nod and a wink and all that.
So moving on.
Matt, I think if they have 20 aircraft, then it doesn't make sense. If they're planning on getting 100 or more, then I think the economies of scale certainly play in. But it adds so much complexity to the operation of the airline. And I think for their business model, it could actually break them. So they'd have to manage that very, very carefully.
Well, of course, you've got a completely different set of pilot skills also. I mean, not all of their pilots would necessarily be type rated on the A320, for example, if that's what they were going to have. As we're at the moment, of course, the pilot, say they had an aeroplane go tech on the tarmac, and they have a spare one, they can, all right, not like in 5 minutes obviously, but they can, that same pilot, providing he hasn't gone out of hours, can then jump into the one that they bring over, because there's no, if the only one that they've got sat there is an A320 and that pilot is only type rated on the 737-800, then suddenly you've got an additional problem.
They've got 456 of those in the fleet, the 800 series 737.
Really?
It's quite a lot, that
I'm surprised that figure's that low. I thought it would have been higher than that.
But
when you think how many routes they fly day in, day out.
They still have 24 of those on order from Boeing as well. 24 of the Dash 800.
Yeah, is that not the Maxes?
They've got 135 of those on order.
I was going to say.
And they're due for delivery in 2019.
So do the Maxes, do they have a different type
Slightly
rating,
longer.
or do you need to be retype rated to fly a Max?
I think they're very, very similar. I think it's a very short conversion course, if I remember hearing about it this rightly, because it's a very, very similar aircraft.
Yeah.
The only difference being, I suppose, the Max holds 197 as opposed to 189 passengers. So
that's not a huge difference.
It's not a huge difference.
Right, but the avionics on the flight deck could be different, though.
Yeah, I think the Maxes have slightly less screens. They've sort of compacted the electronic flight instrument display system onto a lesser amount of screens. I think it's on, if I remember right, I think it's 4 or 5 or 6 screens. It has the information on. But,
Lane Street's saying in the chat room here that it's same type rating, difference training only. So so you're just picking up the little bit of paper. I suppose it'd be easier to do, which is why I wouldn't understand why they then go down the A320 model. I genuinely think they're just banging a drum, saying, look, we're having meetings with Airbus, because I think even the Airbus CEO is sceptical about the seriousness of an order. Anyway.
Yeah, the only thing is, though, if you're really planning on growing the business, and again, you get 100 or so aircraft, and Boeing just can't build them fast enough, you really have no other choice but going to Airbus. So it does make sense, but again, the complexities that are being added into their operation, they really need to be careful about that.
Yeah, it's as I say, I think it's just tub thumping. I think they're just using this as an excuse, aren't they? Sorry, something was taking off at my now favourite airport and website. So sorry about that. I was distracted slightly.
So moving on to the next story. Who's up now? I've lost my place.
I've just done it. So that would be the legend that is Sir Nev.
Nev, yes, Nev. This is a special story about a slight ding.
Yes, it's the Aer Lingus A330 whilst taxiing clips a building at San Francisco. And the aircraft was taken out of service on Wednesday after its wing clipped a concrete wall as it was being towed to a gate at San Francisco International Airport. No one was injured in the incident, but it did result in some damage to the aircraft. The incident occurred at 3:15 p.m. local time, coming shortly after Aer Lingus Flight 147 had arrived into San Francisco from Dublin. Citing an airport spokesman, CBS affiliate KPIX reports that the jet was being taxied in by a tractor into the terminal when the tracked crew misjudged the turn and the wing clipped a concrete pillar.
Oh, for goodness sake.
The San Francisco Chronicle adds after the plane was towed to the gate, green paint from the plane's wingtip was clearly visible on the concrete post. Aer Lingus confirmed the incident to the Irish Independent, saying that a full investigation into the incident is underway. The carrier also cancelled the jet's scheduled return flight to Dublin that was supposed to operate as Aer Lingus Flight 146. Aer Lingus apologises for the inconvenience caused to impacted guests, the airline said in a statement to the Independent. Those who had arrived on Flight 147 ended up being stuck on board the aircraft for about an hour after the plane clipped the airport building. Maria Louise of Belfast was amongst those on the flight. She described the moment of impact to NBC Bay Area, saying, "It was a bang, a good bang. Kind of made you go forward and back in your seat again." By the end, though, she told NBC that most passengers were eager to get off the aircraft after the long flight from Ireland. So, yes, I don't know if you've got any pictures of that, Matt, but yes, it's a little bit of paperwork for everybody to fill out again.
Yes, there's definitely some form filling in required, I think, for that one. I mean, it's just like...
It's definitely tight there, isn't it? It's definitely tight.
I mean, was the aircraft somewhere it shouldn't have been? I don't understand how something like this is.
You have
happened.
wing walking
Yes,
people
you should
usually
do.
when an aircraft's being towed like that. And well, whatever happened, someone misjudged it, I think, and it was clearly quite tight anyway. So,
I think the tug driver might be going through either additional training or looking for a new career.
Yes, I think maybe towing aeroplanes is not his forte, I fear. Oh dear. Anyway, on to the very last
they
story.
do the center lines that they're supposed to keep on, and maybe they were avoiding some other aircraft on the other side of the field or alleyway, and they just misjudged, and he clearly, I think, wasn't, if there was a wing walker, he certainly wasn't paying attention to him, or the wing walker wasn't paying attention. But there was definitely miscommunication going on there.
And as Nev says, a lot of paperwork will be required.
But Jeff, Captain Jeff has quite rightly put in the chat room that just a little bit of sanding required, and that'll fix it.
Right, okay. Right, of course. That's just, yes. You can always rely on Captain Jeff for,
he's obviously used to doing that with the Mad Dog.
I'm very sorry. I've lost the ability to don't go there. Don't go there. I've obviously lost the ability to communicate. Is where I was going with that. And don't you say what I think you were about to say.
I wasn't going to say anything.
Yeah, whatever.
So, Brian, the next story is for you on Flight Global.
Yeah, I think the only commercial aircraft that I haven't flown on. This is about Airbus's great A380.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so still looking forward to flying on an A380. One of these days, it'll happen. Although this story kind of catches me by surprise because I'm surprised they're still making the A380. I see absolutely no reason for this aircraft any longer. So the first Airbus A380 for All Nippon Airways has rolled out the final assembly in Toulouse. So congratulations to Airbus and ANA for getting this plane. So Airbus says the aircraft with the ANA logo on its vertical tail will move to an outdoor station where structural completion, engine installation, cockpit finishing will be conducted. It's always nice that they finish the cockpit before they put it into service.
Quite right, yes.
Yeah. Earlier this year, the airline announced that its 3 A380s will each be configured with 520 seats, 8 in first class, which I would love to check out, 56 in business, 73 in premium economy, and 383 in regular economy. The aircraft will be powered by Rolls-Royce Trent 970 engines. Delivery of the first A380 to the Japanese carrier is scheduled for early 2019, after which it will be deployed on the Tokyo-Honolulu route. So I guess an awful lot of Japanese planning on going to Honolulu in style and comfort on the A380. So.
Yeah, they still are, mate. I think the production rate has been cut down quite a lot. Is it 1.5 aircraft a month or something that they were producing? But they do have a big order, though, Brian, with Emirates for some fresh new A380s. So, yeah, they're obviously... And there is a second-hand market for them now, as we talked about
the A380,
episodes back.
Absolutely, yeah. And a lot of wet leasing going on with them as well.
So the second-hand market is starting to open up for them.
Is it?
Yeah, the thing that I still don't understand about Emirates, I've looked at a lot of load factors on their flights, and they're going out not very full. So I still find it hard to believe that they're taking more aircraft on when they can't fill the ones that they have. So
yeah, it's good. Yeah.
Just for your benefit, Nev, there is a BA A320 at Lanzarote that's going to be taking off soon.
Oh, is there? When? How long have we got?
it's still at the gate at the minute, but
is it?
Yeah,
rubbish. It's probably running late, to be fair.
Yeah. Let's go off to London Gatwick, actually.
Is it?
Yeah,
oh dear.
A320, yeah.
Oh dear.
Yeah. So that was the last story in the commercial news segment there for this week. And we are going to hand things over now to Nev to explain what's going on next.
Yes, do you remember we had our 200th show, didn't we?
Completely forgotten about it.
Which seems ages ago now.
Yeah, it does.
So many shows since. But of course, we had a great meet-up with lots of people there, one of whom was a chap called Mat Caton. And rather than telling you all about it now, let's just play the tape. Hello and welcome to another Nev's Passenger Experience. Well, those of you who came to the 200th show at Flight Experience London might well recognise the voice of Mat Caton, the fine fellow who brewed a special beer for us for this event. It was very tasty indeed, and we must thank Matt once again for doing such a sterling job with it. Last week I got the chance to have another chat with him about flying this time and the kind of trips that he takes when going on holiday. I began by asking him how many times he normally flies in an average year.
At least once or twice a year, various different airlines, mostly Virgin at the moment because of the destinations that we're choosing. But we've been most places around the world.
Nice. And what was your last flight that you took?
The last flight home was from Vegas to Gatwick. Obviously that was a return flight from Gatwick. That was on a 747. And it was on a Virgin flight. We actually flew on Ladybird. I try and document which planes we go on.
Now, what was the service like that you received?
The service was excellent. We did fly upper class on the way out, and I can't fault it, to be honest. Apart from the entertainment screens, the food is fantastic. Can't fault the food. I'm a vegetarian, so I'm a little bit picky, and they have plenty of choice. There's usually 5 different menu options to choose from, so I've got plenty of options there. And the service from the boys and the girls on board is fantastic. I really can't fault them.
Yeah, they've always got a good reputation, especially in upper class, haven't they?
Yes, but we flew premium economy coming home, and still, I didn't see any difference in service quality, apart from the fact they've got more people to look after. They're very attentive, very friendly, always got a smile on their face. They're just great.
Great. Now, what about the in-flight entertainment? How was that for you?
So they do offer an excellent range of films, and we had all the films that had recently won the Oscars, but some of them are so dark you can't watch them on the screen. And the 747's flight entertainment systems haven't been upgraded by the looks of it, and the screens are very dark. I had the same problem last year trying to watch Star Wars Rogue One. That was very dark, couldn't watch it. So I generally just watched the cartoons, to be honest. I watched Captain Underpants this year. That was very good. But like I say, if you try and watch anything too dark and moody,
That's interesting because some of the in-flight entertainment systems on some of the older aircraft, obviously, they're getting on a bit.
Yeah.
But do you think, is there a case for actually not having any at all and you just bring your own? So you load up your iPad or your tablet with films and do it that way?
For some people, that would work. For me, it wouldn't, because I don't have Netflix. I don't watch a lot of TV, generally. So I don't sign up to any of these film subscription services. So for me, going on an aeroplane is like going to the pictures. I get the opportunity to see some of these latest films because I generally don't watch films. So that's an added bonus for me. And if they don't provide that for me, then I would just sit there and read or listen to music, I suppose. So that's a bonus for me.
Yeah, that's a very interesting point. And actually, I'm with you there because I'm not a big film fan either. So that's probably one of the only times I actually sit down and watch a film all the way through.
Yeah, so the only films I've seen over the last 2 or 3 years have been on an aeroplane, apart from the odd film late at night on Channel 4, perhaps.
Yes. Now, what about short-haul operations? Do you do much flying around Europe at all?
We've been to Benidorm a couple of times the last few years, just for a stopgap, an easy flight to somewhere sunny on Jet 2.
Right.
I think they were a new operator at the time. They were very good as well. Very clean planes. Again, very good service. I did like their planes. They didn't offer us any food as a package because you have to buy sandwiches and things on board.
In terms of airline flying generally, I mean, it's funny, I've always say this, that the easy bit is doing 600 miles an hour through the air. The difficult bit is the check-in and collecting your bags. What do you think is one of the areas that could be improved in that sort of area?
For us, we're quite lucky because we do fly upper class quite a lot. And generally, if we fly with Virgin, we have a certain tier with our membership. We're silver tier. So we get to use the premium check-in, which cuts down a lot of the queues and the waiting. I've seen an improvement in various airports recently in that they're trying to make an effort to get people through security by increasing lanes. I know Vegas has expanded a bit. Schiphol has changed over the years. That's a very easy airport to get through nowadays, just generally because there's more gates to go through, more security gates available to each person.
I've always thought that about Schiphol, actually, considering the size of the airport, and it's obviously one of the largest in Europe, how they manage it so well. I mean, unless they have a big moment where there's fog or snow, but generally speaking, navigating around the airport, there's very little queuing, I've noticed.
It's easy, isn't it? The automated passport machines seem to work, whereas in places like Benidorm, they don't. That was one of the bugbears of Benidorm. I'm not particularly ageist, but people of a certain age don't seem to know how to work the machines very well.
Careful.
Yeah, so, I don't know, with these modern technologies always comes a price, I think. One of the classic ones was coming home to Gatwick to a series of 20 machines in front of us, and only 10 were working because there was one guy looking after the machines. Well, if it's an automated machine, why do you need a bloke to work it? I don't understand that.
Well, I understand what you're saying there, because I noticed that at Heathrow T5 the other week as well. Exactly the same story. You know, I've got all these machines and half of them are shut down for maintenance or whatever. And there's a couple of people actually operating it, and just the queues are just as long as ever, aren't they? Yeah,
it's made not much difference at all, really. So, yeah, that's interesting. I'd like to see what happens after Brexit. Will we have our own queue to go through nowadays instead of just going through the EU queue? Will they split that up even more? It's going to be interesting to see how they work that.
Yeah, and I can remember a time not that long ago where you didn't need any identification or passport to go to the Republic of Ireland from the UK either.
Right.
And I never used to take my passport to Dublin or my driving licence, and I used to go backwards and forwards, I don't know, 5 times a year probably. But over the last probably 3 or 4 years, definitely, you have to take your passport or some form of identification. In terms of future flying, Matt, have you got any plans to get on a plane again soon?
We're probably going to do the usual trip to Vegas. We're next year, and I think we're actually planning a second trip. We've saved up enough points to get a free flight. At the moment, we've got enough to get to New York and back, but after our next holiday, we should have enough to get to Vegas. So we're going to have a free trip on Virgin. Thanks, Richard.
Well, that's nice, isn't it? I think
Yeah.
the thing is trying to work out all this status business and points and how you can get from A to B. And I find this with BA sometimes. You look at the points, you think, oh, that's plenty. And then there's a sort of a blackout area or a time when you can't travel, which makes it very difficult. Is it the same with Virgin as well? There's only selected flights you can take?
There are similar stipulations, yeah. So there's an off-peak time and a peak time. So you're looking at paying nearly a third more in points for a peak time flight. I think to New York on an off-peak flight, you're looking at 75,000 air miles. That's off-peak. So if you go peak, you're looking at probably over 100,000. You've got to weigh it up. You've got to be a little bit clever. Use your points to the maximum if you can. That's what they're there for. And if you can get a free flight out of an airline, then why not?
Yeah, and imagine what it would be like in the old days, if you can remember back that far, before we had the internet and you had to go down to your travel agent. You know, there was none of this sort of booking directly with the airlines. All these frequent flyer programs would never work, would they? Because there's no way of finding out your status or what you were entitled to.
That's right. I think it'd be a lot more difficult. I think my wife was a travel agent in a previous life because she is fantastic at finding prices of flights and holidays. I just leave it up to her. She's great at that.
There are some people who are naturally very good at this sort of thing, aren't they?
That's right. Yeah. You need a lot of patience. I know Carlos is quite good at this as well.
Yes, I mean you can spend hours or days actually looking at all this, but and of course they do change from one day to the next sometimes as well. So it takes a bit of working out.
Also, I think Watchdog did a feature where if you log on using a different laptop, you can get a different price, and it's something to do with the history on your Google account or things like that. They can actually work out if you've been looking at the same flight over and over again for the last couple of days. They start to put the price up because they know you're keen.
This is very interesting, isn't it? And why doesn't this surprise me? The fact that they probably know more about you than you do.
That's right.
You know, but no, it's very tactical, isn't it, as well, booking these sorts of things. And if you, as always, if you do a last-minute thing, you know, it's either going to be very cheap or very expensive. Certainly in long haul, it's very expensive. But yeah, they know your searching criteria and how you work, I think.
Virgin normally have a sale at the end of August. So if anyone's looking for a cheap flight with Virgin, then that's probably the time to have a look. That's when we normally get ours booked up. So.
And that's for the following year, is it?
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, Matt, as always, terrific speaking to you, and thank you very much, by the way, for your beer contribution to the 200th show. That was superb, and it was great to meet you then as well.
That's no problem. Yeah, it's nice to meet everyone. I don't get a chance to listen live, so I don't have a lot of contact with everyone, but that was certainly a great day, and I've been working on more beer projects recently. That's why I haven't been around a lot, but it was certainly a pleasure to see you guys, and I'm glad everyone enjoyed the beer, especially Steph. She seemed to enjoy that quite a lot.
She did, didn't she? And yeah, but it's great to hear you're still working on beer projects. That's an important part of the show, I think.
Yes, yeah. Well, hopefully I can get to share some with you another time.
Look forward to it, Matt. Mind how you go. Thanks ever so much indeed.
Thank you.
And he's in the chat room.
He is. He says he never makes a live show, and there he is in the chat room. There we go.
Oh, and I can confirm I have invited Matt. Oh, I forgot my hat there.
Oh,
I have invited Matt to the summer flying barbecue that we've got in August. So. Yeah, hopefully Matt will be able to join us for the barbecue and possibly.
Look, even the legendary Sir Jeff is saying that that was indeed great beer. It was. I know not many people got to enjoy it because it went so fast. But you managed to enjoy a bottle, didn't you, Sir Nev?
Oh yes, several actually.
Brian, did you manage to get one?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I was able to enjoy one as well, and I can. Confirm that it was indeed good. I'm unfortunately not going to be able to make it over in May, so if you could ship some beer, if he's so kind to make some again, I would greatly appreciate and enjoy it here in Pasadena.
Oh, we'll see what we can do. I don't know how that quite works with customs, but I'll make some inquiries.
I have still got one bottle left at home.
What?
Yeah. There is one bottle left.
And I know people who didn't get I know one person who didn't get a bottle, so that would be your fault.
That was at the end of the day, the second.
Really?
Yeah, the end of the day. Yeah.
Oh dear. Was it? I'm not sure I can make the BBC.
The summer barbecue flying.
Oh, I see. Oh, sorry.
He mispronounced the Q and put a C.
I got a little bit overexcited. Oh, so I see. Right. So
yeah,
just like, hello. It's like, what does Auntie want? Nev, what have you done now?
So, I was looking to see how close to Q was on the keyboard to C. It's miles away. I don't know.
Miles and miles away.
Perhaps he's been on the beer.
Yeah. Perhaps he's got a special keyboard. Anyway, sorry, we digress slightly.
But thanks for that, Nev. That was awesome.
It was.
Yeah, good to have a chat with Matt again, and look forward to meeting up again soon sometime.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so on that note, don't forget the Summer Flying Barbecue, 18th of August this year.
Yes, I think so, yes.
And we're obviously, as you all know, you listen to the show, we are having our first Summer Flying Barbecue.
Yes, Armando, by the way, who I was chatting to during the week, who is also going to fly in his Piper 28, is adamant that they're going to try and do some kind of fly past formation flying with Captain Al, and try and take some photographs of each other in flight. So that is going to be, I can't wait. It's going to be so much fun. I've already planned the menu. You'll be pleased to know the food.
Burgers, sausages. Burgers.
Oh dear Lord,
sausages.
no, man! They're going to no. It's a PT UK meetup. It's going to be quality. It's not just going to be any burger.
Oh, you're doing fried onions?
Oh, for God's sake! Honestly, heathens. I'm working with heathens. Oh, Captain Jeff, please back me up.
Answers on a postcard for what particular apron you want Matt to wear while he's cooking the food. Anyway, moving on to
outrageous.
Moving on to the next part of the show.
I'm on strike now. I'm no longer pressing buttons. Good luck.
I'll sing the stinger to myself.
Right. Yes.
So we have got a few.
I'm sorry, Carlos. Before you move on to the military news, I feel like Captain Al delaying as much as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Did you guys see the story about how they're planning on putting urinals in commercial aircraft now?
What?
And they've done a study over the timing of how long it takes to use the facilities, and how by adding 2 urinals to an aircraft will increase productivity so much more.
Right.
And if you haven't read that article, I will send you the URL, and
please do. That's
maybe put it in the show for next week.
Will it be in a cubicle? I mean, do you have a private cubicle, or are you just sort of walking up to the front of the vehicle, up to the front of the aircraft? And look, it's small steps. All right, I'm watching aeroplanes land and take off. All right, small baby steps. Are they just gonna, or are they just gonna draw a curtain and then you do what you need to do and? Oh,
yeah, they said they were going to take the size of the regular...
I beg your pardon. Where are we going with this?
And convert it into 2 urinals. So, I don't know if there's only going to be 1 door, if there'll be 2 doors, or a curtain, or how exactly they're going to do it. The article didn't have any photographs, but I found it quite interesting.
Well, we did have the story a few weeks back, if you remember, guys, with the B-days being installed, didn't we?
On aircraft?
Yeah. Have you forgotten already, Matt?
Yes,
You've got memory like a sieve, and I thought I was bad.
Yes. Indeed. Anyway, should we do some military?
Let's do some military news, before we upset anyone. So
too late for that.
If everyone's ready,
no, you can't do it that quickly. I'm not ready.
He's not ready. So the first news story in the military segment this week is on the Royal Air Force site, raf.mod.uk.
One of my favourite aircraft is.
It's regarding one of the aircraft that we've seen very much at air shows across the UK, and I've also had a chance to sit in the flight deck of one of these. And this is the A400M. Atlas has gained full aeromedical capability. So the Royal Air Force's A400M Atlas, the RAF's newest transport aircraft, has achieved a new milestone, gaining full aeromedical evacuation capability for high dependency and high infectious patients. The delivery of this airborne medical capability represents another important step towards the Atlas programme, which is delivering vital air transport solutions for the Royal Air Force. During a recent demonstration to senior Royal Air Force officers, Tactical Medical Wing, or TMW, based at RAF Bryce Norton, they showed the impressive aeromedical evacuation capabilities of the Atlas. The A400M can carry up to 66 low to medium dependency stretcher patients or 4 high dependency stretcher patients. The Critical Care Air Support Team, or CCAST, based at Bryce Norton, provides care equivalent to that found in an NHS intensive care unit, including intubation and ventilation.
I hope the waiting lists aren't quite as...
It's not as bad, not with the Royal Air Force, no. The Atlas also supports the Air Transportable Isolator, ATI, which is a secure, high-tech plastic bubble that allows patients with high-consequence infectious diseases to be transported safely without infecting others. Once landed, the ATI patient is transported to the hospital, usually the Royal Free Hospital in London, by ambulance. So the full aeromedical evacuation capability of the A400M, including CCAST and ATI, represents a major landmark for the programme and the development of a world-class air transport capability for the Royal Air Force. Now, I have to say, this is really starting to prove itself to be really useful now to the Royal Air Force. And I know that when we spoke to the pilots a few years back at RIAT, you know, they all absolutely loved flying the aircraft and were incredibly in awe of its capabilities and what it can do. You know, it's had its teething problems over the past few years, but you know, I think this is definitely a good, strong, capable aircraft for the Royal Air Force.
Yeah, it's a very agile aircraft, as we saw at the at Farnborough as well, didn't we? Yeah, absolutely.
So, next story.
Yes, the next story is on Flight Global again, and the headline is Bell confident on V280 as development gathers pace. So Bell Helicopter is confident that its new V280 velour tilt rotor will achieve the programme's targeted speed of 280 knots. That's 518 kilometres per hour later this summer, with the test aircraft having so far hit 190 knots during initial transitions to forward flight. The chase plane is now an is it Vodo Choddy? Sorry, apologies if I got that wrong. L39. We can't use a helicopter anymore as they are not. They're just simply not fast enough. Steve Matthias, who's the Vice President of Global Military Business Development at the US manufacturer, told SMI's Helicopter Technology Eastern and Central Europe Conference. First flight of the V280, which has been produced for a US technology development effort, took place last December, and Bell has since accumulated around 30 hours on the platform, including sorties with its prop rotors tilted horizontally. It is on track to hit 280 knots by the summer. We are where we expect it to be, said Matthias. So the aircraft is currently located at Bell's facility in Amarillo, Texas, but will move to its main Fort Worth site later this year. A second US Army test pilot has also now flown the aircraft, and he says following sorties with another Army aviator on the 7th of February. Bell is developing the V280 as a risk reduction exercise known as the Joint Multi-Role Technology Demonstrator ahead of the USA's launch of its proposed future vertical lift program. So Matthias says the company is so confident that the V280 that it could now theoretically move into the engineering, manufacturing and development phase of a typical US acquisition program. We could go straight to the milestone B decision and cut out about 4 years of acquisition process. He says the JMR-JD phase is scheduled to last until 2019, with FVL likely to be launched in the early or mid-2020s to begin deliveries in the 2030s. So still a little way off, I think, really, before we see them commonplace. Bell faces competition from a joint Sikorsky / Boeing team, which is building the SB-1 Defiant compound rotorcraft. However, that aircraft is running behind schedule and has yet to actually fly.
So I was looking up because I was just trying to see what the V280 was all about, and when you look at the pictures, it's very, very similar to the V22 Osprey, which is an awesome tilt rotor that we have here in the UK, flying around quite a lot. And obviously Armando has a lot to do with those as well, the V22. And this one, the V280, it differs from the V22. It's slightly smaller, but also one of the differences that it has as well is that when the difference between the V22 and this is when the tilt rotors move, the engines remain in place while the rotors and drive shafts tilt. So that's the difference between how this operates and the V22 operates. Wow. But if you Google that, if you Google the V280 Valor, it's classed as Valor, VALOR. It looks awesome. It kind of looks like a very streamlined, sort of more meaner version of the V22. But it's definitely worth looking up. So yeah. So moving on to the last one then, Nev. This is good news for our newest aircraft carrier here in the UK.
Yes, about time, isn't it? And this is on the Flight Global website again, and it says that the UK Royal Navy has taken delivery of the first of an eventual 25 Leonardo helicopters, A101 Merlin HC4 heavy lift transports, but future upgrade priorities are already being outlined. To be operated by the RN's Commando Helicopter Force, the former Royal Air Force Merlins are being upgraded and marinised under a £388 million contract. Deliveries of the helicopters, which are being raised from the HC3/3A standard, are to run until 2023. But the CHF is already considering its next upgrade requirements, with in-flight refuelling topping the list. We would really like that capability. It would be a real force multiplier. Lieutenant Commander Aaron Cross, who's the operations officer for 846 NAS, one of the 2 units that will operate the aircraft, told a Prague conference on the 24th of May. In-flight refueling is not part of the Mark IV program, but it added clearly multiplies most of Merlin's capabilities, says Cross. That is clearly where we are looking beyond the Mark IV. So in 5 years' time, that will be the drum we are beating. As part of the current modification work, the helicopters will receive a folding tail and main rotor blades, a new glass cockpit, and improved defensive aid suite, which for the first time includes a chaff dispenser. It almost beggars belief for a combat helicopter that it has no radio frequency countermeasures, says Cross. The initial example was handed over at a special ceremony on the 24th of May at RNAS Yeovilton, the new base for the helicopters. And the next milestone for the Merlin HC4 will be embarkation aboard the RN's new aircraft carrier, HMS Queen Elizabeth.
Nice.
It's nice.
It's really a massive helicopter, isn't it?
It is.
It's huge.
It is huge. Absolutely huge. You said you've seen it, Carlos.
I a few years back, if you remember, I went to the air show at Malta when I was out on holiday.
Yeah.
And these guys were there with one of these, and I got the chance to interview and speak to the pilot on board, and they actually went on board their helicopter and stuff. And they are huge inside. They are really, they are very big inside.
How many people do you think that it sort of hold?
I mean, it's a good sort of, off the top of my head, it's a good 14 or 15 seats that they have.
Really?
Yeah,
wow, that is a lot for a helicopter. Yeah.
But it's a very well proven again helicopter that the Royal Navy do use.
Because I know like the ones that they use for like doing like people transport and stuff with the offshore rigs and things here in the UK. I mean, I think they only have like 8 seats, don't they? I mean, they're not. You know, that's why I'm trying to give a scale of the size of this thing. You know, to be able to take sort of 15 people, and you think like the helicopter that we're familiar with around here with the East of England, the air ambulance thing, and how little space there is in one of those. I mean, 15 is insane, isn't it?
Yeah, actually, just reading up on these. So the Merlin HM1 can actually, at a maximum stretch, it can carry up to 38 passengers in that. Actually, it's quite good. Or 5 tons of payload as well. They can have on board these. But it's an awesome bit of kit. It's great to see one of these up close and personal, because it's something you don't normally get a chance to do. But
an update on Lanzarote Airport is now getting dark, by the way. It's LanzaroteWebcam.com if you want to have a look at what I've been frankly obsessed by throughout the entire show this evening. But doesn't it look nice at night?
It's lovely, isn't it? Yeah,
it's
there's
good.
a little ATR 72, I think, just taxiing down.
You do realise I'm going to have this on my TV when I go to bed, don't you? Tonight.
It's good. It's soothing. Whoever would have thought aviation could be soothing? Look.
Who would have thought I would be the one obsessing over aviation?
I know.
But anyway, there we are.
That is the worrying thing.
Definitely sounds like you have a problem.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, you have met Carlos, right? I'm just checking. Right. Anyway, yes, indeed. So it is time to move on to our next segment.
Yes, so we have, obviously, we've got a new segment on the show, and those of you will know that we used to have a regular segment from Pip, but Pip has obviously been very busy flying around in his beautiful new shiny Phenom, but he's come back with a vengeance, and he's brought us a new segment, which is the PPE segment.
Not to be confused with hard hats.
Not to be confused with safety equipment for work, but no, it's the Pip's pilot experience.
That's it.
Segment.
Yes,
there
well
we
done.
go. And we're going to bring that. The second instalment is ready for you to listen to right now.
Plane safety from the flight deck with pilot Pip.
Hello, welcome to the second instalment of Pip's pilot experience. And this segment I've decided to entitle Just How Dumb Am I? And the answer is, as it turns out, really quite dumb, at least based on this last week's performance. Now, I hope you guys don't get the impression that us pilots doing this for a living are some sort of superhuman sky gods, because, well, for me, that's just not the case. I make mistakes aplenty, more than my fair share of mistakes, to be honest. Well, this week was no exception. Mistakes come in all shapes and sizes, from tiny little widgy ones like reading back the wrong frequency, which I probably do on a daily basis, particularly in French airspace. I don't know why, but the French accent, particularly when listening to the numbers 2 and 3, something about the French accent, it just muddles my brain and I constantly get it wrong. So reading back a frequency would be a small mistake up to great big whoppers. And I made a couple of howlers this week, which I thought maybe I'll tell you about and might just amuse you somewhat. So the first of these was flying up to Leeds Bradford International Airport, that tropical paradise up in the north of the UK. And I don't know what was going on that day. I guess I was just not paying attention. Same for both of us, actually. We both let this mistake slip. So what happened was we're flying up probably somewhere just over the north side of London at 35,000 feet, and air traffic control gave us the following instruction. They told us to descend to flight level 250, 25,000 feet, to be level 40 miles before a particular point. Okay, that's a fairly standard thing to do. So I did a quick mental calculation, 10,000 feet to lose. Rough guideline is times that by 3, so 10,000 times 3 is 30,000, but knock off the zeros, that's 30 miles we'd need to descend 10,000 feet. That's a standard calculation or standard guideline that we use. 3 times the altitude is the distance we'd need to fly. But somewhere in those few seconds of making that calculation, my brain threw away the most important part of that instruction, which was to be level 40 miles before that point. But in my head, I had translated that to be level at the point. So I thought, okay, we've got plenty of time here. I need to start my descent about 30 miles before this point. What I should have done was 30 miles plus the 40, so that would have been 70 miles. But that part just went in one ear and out the other. So off we went, both of us merrily, with not a care in the world. And it wasn't till some minutes later that air traffic control came back to us and said, just confirm you are going to make that level restrictions 40 miles before the point. And we both went, oh no, we got it wrong. So we did make the level restriction, but we had to descend at quite a high rate, a little bit more than would otherwise be comfortable with passengers on board. But there we go. So we both gave ourselves a metaphorical slap on the wrists for that. But the second mistake came a few days later, flying into Bern in Switzerland. Now, if you've listened to the latest Plane Safety Podcast episode, I mentioned Bern in there. It's caught me out before, although in a slightly different way. But it is a tricky little airport. Hopefully Matt's been able to put the approach plate up on the video so you can see what I'm talking about as you're listening to this. So let me set this up for you. Bern has a single runway 1432. Around the south of the airfield is lots of high terrain, the Alps, the Swiss Alps. So we generally like to land on runway 14 and take off on 32. So you land towards the high ground and take off away from it. But sometimes the wind just doesn't work out. Sometimes you just get a northwesterly wind, which gives you a tailwind onto runway 14, which means you would have to circle round to land on 32, which is not a big deal in itself, although it is, as I've said, a tricky little number, as particularly the circling approach there. And that was the situation we had that day. It was northwesterly at about 7 or 8 knots, which actually is within the limits to land on 14. We could accept a 7 or 8 knot tailwind. In fact, we could accept up to 10 knots. So we had asked previously ATC that if it was possible to make a straight-in approach for 14, but they said no, due to traffic, it's quite busy. We're going to have to take the circling on to 32. Okay, then, we said. So we set up and briefed for that. Now, the circling approach there, what it has you do is fly inbound down the localizer at 4,000 feet to a point at about 4.5 miles, and then you break off to the left and fly a circuit to the north, all at 4,000 feet, which is actually quite high for a circling approach. It's about 2,500 feet above the runway, which is quite high. We'd normally make a circling approach at maybe 1,500 feet or less, maybe 1,000 feet. So that means at some point on the downwind, you've got quite a lot of altitude to lose, so you can make it round for a stable approach onto 32. And they do that at Bern for noise abatement purposes. They don't want you flying too low over the city of Bern. It upsets all those rich Swiss people sitting on their money thrones. Okay, so no problem. We set up for that, brief for that, talked a little bit about which configuration to use, because I'm still relatively new on the aircraft, so I took some advice on that, exactly how we were going to fly that. And that's a plan, in hindsight, that we should have stuck to. I'm a big fan of making a plan and sticking to it and not changing unless there's a really very good reason to do so. And especially not changing it at quite a late stage, which actually is the trap that we got lulled into. So here's what happened. We were held up quite high, so having to descend down quite quickly through some bubbly CB type clouds. So the icing system was on, which actually makes it very difficult to slow down. So we arrived in the general area of Bern, being vectored onto the localizer with a fair bit of altitude and a fair bit of speed to lose, and that's a bad combination generally. You can do one or the other, but not both at the same time. So we joined the localizer down at 4,000 feet with still quite a lot of speed to lose. But that's not a problem, I thought, because we've still got quite a few miles to run before we have to break off the approach for the circling. So I thought we've probably got 3 or 4 miles here, which is more than enough to let the speed bleed off and we can start configuring. But just as we're getting onto the localizer, ATC says to us, okay, well, if you want, you can make the straight-in approach to 14. And this is probably our first mistake. We should have said, no, well, we're set up for the circling. We'll just continue with that. But we didn't, because we're pilots and we're silly and we like to get on the ground as quickly as possible and make the flight time as short as possible. We said, yep, okay, we can do that. Unfortunately, we had just passing through the glide slope intercept at that point, and it's quite a steep approach at Bern. It's 4 degrees as opposed to 3. Now, you may think, well, what's the difference? 3 or 4 degrees is not that much, but, it's a fair old difference. So I quickly put it into a vertical speed mode to try and capture the glide slope from above, which, again, is less than ideal. We generally like to capture glide slopes from below, but, that's not a big deal in itself. But now we've got a tailwind, we've got a steep approach on which we're already slightly high, and we're steaming in at quite a rate of knots. So this is all adding up to be a bit of a mess. So throttles are at idle. Immediately have the gear put down, which is nice and draggy. That gets the aircraft slowed down. And as soon as we get within the flap limiting speed, which is on the Phenom is 180 knots for the first stage of flap, which is really quite low. I find that quite restrictive. I call for flaps 1, which again was probably a little bit of a mistake and perhaps shows my lack of experience on the type, because as soon as you put the flaps down, you lose the use of the speed brakes. With the gear down, you can use the speed brakes, and clean, you can use the speed brakes. But with flaps out, you can't until you get to full flaps, and then you can use the speed brakes in the steep descent mode. But I neglected to take that into account, and we went gear down, flaps 1. Probably what would have been better would have been for me to stay with the gear down and just use the speed brakes to get the aircraft slowed down. That would have been a much more efficient way of slowing down. But unfortunately, that's not what we did. So we went flaps 1, and then as the speed gradually bleeds off a bit more, we can go flaps 2, and then eventually down to flaps 3, and then flaps 4. But it, this aircraft doesn't slow down very well. It's quite, as we say, a slippery aeroplane. So the net result of this is that we're coming down the approach much faster than our profiles dictate. Now, we did recapture the glide slope quite early on, so we weren't going that steeply down, but it was fast, all the way down at the various check gates that we have. We were stable in everything except speed. Now, we talked about this a little bit on my last podcast. We do have some leeway on the speed when it comes to our stable criteria. And it's ironic that we just produced a whole episode on going around and why we should be going around. And this was a classic example of an approach that we probably, in hindsight, should have thrown away at quite an early stage and accepted that we fluffed it up a bit, flew the missed approach, and had another crack at it. Now, the missed approach itself is quite a tricky one as well. So maybe that was in the back of our minds, just sort of playing at our subconscious, thinking, oh, I don't want to make this missed approach because it's a bit of a bugger to fly. But strictly speaking, I think we were just about stable at the last possible point at 500 feet above the airfield. It was a nice visual, beautiful day, nice weather except for the tailwind. So we by the strictest criteria, we just made our stabilization point. But it wasn't pretty, I must admit. And once on the ground, I think we kind of looked at each other and sort of exchanged glances, and I think we knew that perhaps we could have done a little bit better with that one. Some of it, as I said, was just due to my relative inexperience on the type. I've probably only got a couple of 100 hours on it at this stage after 6 months. And also just our willingness to get suckered into that late change of plan. And, it's not the first time that's happened to me, and it certainly probably won't be the last. But I think in many cases, it really is best just to stick to the plan that you've already made and briefed, and don't change it unless you really do have a very good reason why you should. Well, hopefully lesson learned for next time. But between you and me, I'm pretty sure that won't be the last time I make a mistake. Because, as I said at the beginning,
'cause I'm only human after all, and you're only human.
We all make mistakes.
Yeah, it's I mean, it is your worst nightmare, isn't it? As a pilot, because there's so much at stake, isn't there? I mean, it's just all right. There was no issues in regard, because I suppose that's the joys of being experienced pilots and stuff. But
I have made many mistakes when I've been flying.
But you're learning that's kind of expected.
With RT and stuff.
Yeah.
When you're speaking on the radio and you've got it in your head what you want to say. This is the big thing. You know exactly what you've got to say in your head.
Yeah.
But what comes out of your mouth
is a different thing altogether. Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well.
So thanks for that, Pip.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, keep them coming. Loving them. Yeah.
Yeah, don't forget you can find Pip.
Carlos, that happens to me every day in my life. I don't know what you're talking about.
That is true. That is very true. Well, listen, look, guys. Unfortunately, we have sort of overrun a little bit, so it is time to start wrapping up.
Yeah, me and Nev have got to be up early tomorrow.
Well, that is true. Yeah, Brian, thank you so very much for joining us this evening, and it's always a pleasure to have you on. So we'll have you on again soon, sir, if we may.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. Sorry for the microphone issue.
We'll sort it out in time for next time. You'll be an expert in Google Hangouts before you know it, sir. It'll be all part of the fun. But
yeah, perfect. The one thing I wanted to mention, if I could, though, is the Airplane Geeks are having to meet up June 16th at the Udvar Hazy Air and Space Museum.
Wow.
So Father's Day weekend here in the United States. The event is between 10 and 3, and after the event, we're having a dinner over at the Red Robin that's very close to the Udvar Hazy Museum. So that's one out at Dulles Airport. And if anyone's in the States and wants to come by, we'd love to see you.
Definitely, yeah. I can recommend everybody's company. You're going to have a very good day if you can make it. So what was the date again, Brian? And where is it being held?
It's June 16th at the Udvar Hazy Air and Space Museum.
Cool.
Can't make it.
Yeah, no, I can't make it, unfortunately. But wow, yeah, I think I've got a barbecue then, haven't I?
Jet 2 don't fly. Jet 2 don't fly there, yeah.
No, right, okay. It's only a matter of time.
It's a great museum, though, and I went there last year for the first time, and absolutely superb place. So yeah, I'd love to go back there at some point.
Would you say, Nev, it's up there in the best ones?
Very much so, yeah. And there's plenty of space. I mean, it's a really good place just to, well, you can easily spend more than the whole day there. But no, I really enjoyed it when I went.
And what better reason to go to an amazing museum than to go and spend some time with the Airplane Geeks? I mean, what more could you need? So, well, Brian, hopefully we'll speak to you afterwards and we hear about how it went.
Yeah, sure. We'd love to come back on and talk about the event at that time. Yeah.
Splendid, yeah. Sounds good. Excellent. Good. Right, well, we're going to start wrapping up, as I say, because these two here, this one here, and the legend that is Sir Nev. What time have you got to be up in the morning, Nev?
It's not too bad, actually. About 6:45.
Ooh.
So I'm going to leave here about 7:30, and then should be at Bruntingthorpe by about 9.
Right. Okay. And what time do you have to get up, Carlos, in order to get there?
Well, because me and Matt live in the
back end of nowhere,
I should be leaving my house around about 6 a.m.
Oh, lovely!
Morning.
What a treat! Yes.
At 6 a.m.
You'll be tired and waspy then.
Yeah, I'll be full of the joys of spring.
Good luck, Nev. That's all I'm going to tell you. Good luck.
Well, I'm sure we'll find some coffee and general food business and that sort of stuff.
Indeed.
Too,
right.
Yeah. And obviously you have got the mandatory photograph of ice creams. Don't forget that, gentlemen.
Oh, yeah, I've got to do that.
Those are the rules. Yeah. Those are the rules. Because, obviously Captain Al will be very impressed if you do.
So don't forget, if any of our UK listeners who might be listening now, I think it'll be too late for the audio listeners because
it will.
But it'll be great to see you at Bruntingthorpe tomorrow for the Cold War Jets Day. It'll be my first, and Nev's I think first time there.
Yep.
And we're looking forward to seeing what you have on offer.
And looking forward to all the content that I'm sure you gentlemen are going to sort out. So, Brian, if they want to listen to the Airplane Geeks and they're not aware of it, how do they find your fabulous podcast?
They could go to airplanegeeks.com.
Right, very simple. Ours is planetalkinguk.com. Our Twitter handle is @planetalkinguk, and you'll find us on Facebook by facebook.com/planetalkinguk. If you would like to volunteer yourself for a Nev's passenger experience, you can do that by writing to us by email to podcast@planetalkinguk.com. That's podcast@planetalkinguk.com. Right, I think Carlos is obviously already overtired. He's become a small child. So from all of us, then, it is time
to go.
It is time to go. So from
have a great
all
weekend,
of us
everyone.
today, this is episode 218. Signing out. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.